When the world was young, Juan was a young man who was a very talented fellow. He could mimic any creatures out in the bush, and he could make any sounds that came from nature. But he was a very lazy man, and he would never join the other men in hunting. He would stay around the camp, and while he was around the camp, the women would gather around listening to Juan, and of course they would look after him. Now, it wasn't long before the men of his camp became really angry with Juan. They asked him to join them in the hunt, but Juan would refuse. He was really comfortable staying around the camp while the women served him and looked after him. And of course, he didn't want to join the men in any hunt whatsoever. Now, the men got so upset with Juan that they banished him from the camp, and they told him to leave the tribe and go out into the plains by himself, and Juan was banished. He went out into the plains all by himself. He was really upset with his people, and he made a camp, and his camp was bigger and better than his own people, and he made it sound like that there was a lot of people in the camp all the time, and if any weary traveller would come along, Juan would be there for him. And they would sit around the campfire, and Juan would give them drink, and then he would say to the hunter, "Oh, excuse me, I left something in my humpy. I've just got to go in there and get it for you. I'll be back in a few minutes." So Juan would disappear into his humpy, and then he would sneak behind the weary hunter. He would hit him on the head with his axe, and when the hunter would fall down into the fire, his body would burn and disappear, and Juan was left with the food that the hunter had brought with him. And Juan lived in this way for many weeks before the people of his tribe started worrying about where all the hunters were going. They would leave in the morning looking for food, but they'd never come home. And of course they were worrying the people. Now, Biami, the Great Spirit, he came down to investigate what was happening. The men would disappear. They would go in the morning but never come home. So Biami said, "I will be one of these hunters. I will go out into the plains and I will investigate and see what is happening." And so Biami did. He became a hunter, and he soon came across the camp of Juan. And of course, Biami sat down near the campfire, and Juan gave him some water to drink. And then Juan said, "Excuse me, I've just got to go into my humpy. I've forgotten something to give you." And so Juan would go into his humpy. He snuck out. He came behind Biami, and just as he was about to hit Biami on the head like he had done all the other hunters, Biami sidestepped Juan, and Juan fell into the fire. He got all burnt up, and his body changed into a bird, and he came out of the ashes all black. And Biami said, "Now you are a bird, Juan, and you will be known as the crow, and you are still the trickster, but you will stay like this until you have learnt your lesson to be compassionate to others. And from that day to this, you will see Juan the crows everywhere you look, and they will remind you not to be as cheeky as that fellow way back in the dreaming."